back. My name is Chelsea. I'm an Australian living in Paris and I love all things sewing, fashion, and all things French. Welcome if you are new. Today I'm going to talk about 12 tips to make your garments look more professional when you're sewing. First, I want to show you this little set that I've made. So we've got a bit of a peplum top with some bows as straps. I really love it. So there's elastic here and elastic here. And the pants are some really loose flare pants that I love to wear. I think this is more of a loungewear set. I love the gingham. I got this fabric from Coupon Saint-Pierre. I thought you'd appreciate. All right, let's get into it. Tip number 1 is to choose good quality fabrics. By that, I usually mean natural fibers. So that could be silk, cotton, linen, so many others. And I try to avoid things that feel super plasticky, just really cheap, things that look like they will peel after a couple uses. Some other ways to pick good quality fabrics is to see that when you stretch it, if it's an elastic sort of fabric, does the color fade when you stretch it? Tip number 2 also applies to shopping, and it is to choose fabrics in your color season. I got my colors done by a professional stylist back in 2018, and she gave me this little swatch book. So navy is one of my colors, and I feel like I just glow that little bit extra when I'm wearing this color, as well as this sort of purpley deep raspberry red. What up? It's just one extra way to feel more confident when you are wearing your finished projects. Number 3 is to wash your fabric before sewing. Your first wash should be not when the garment is assembled, but when it's just one big roll of fabric. I think it comes out a lot better. There's less risk of it ruining your finished garment. I should do it more often, I know that. Number 4 is to press your fabric after you've washed it. This is just before you pin your pattern pieces and cut out. You want any creases to be removed. I recommend putting the selvages together, lining up, and even pressing down on the crease, just so it's nice and crisp, especially if you're cutting any pieces on the fold. I also recommend ironing your pattern pieces on a low heat, especially if they're out of the, really lightweight tissue paper. They can crease very easily when they're put in the envelopes. Just be sure that the iron is not too hot. Once again, make sure it's on a low setting and gently just hover your iron over the pieces so that it's nice and easy when you put them on the fabric and you're good to go. Number 6 is to make sure that you have all your pattern pieces on the grain. And also, if it's a directional print, make sure that it's going the right way. If there's a pattern piece that's sitting close to your neck, you might want a certain type of design on the print so that that's the first thing people see. When I was cutting out my final major work in fashion school last year, I did this with the help of my friend, and I was really happy with the layout of the print on the dress up near the neckline. Also, if you want the back seams or any of the side seams to line up, make sure that you're cutting your pattern pieces in the right way so that it includes seam allowance and so that they will line up after you finish sewing. Number 7 is to make sure you are doing a good cutting job with some sharp scissors. It's recommended to get your scissors sharpened every couple of months. I really think I'm due for a sharpening. You can take them to a knife sharpener, or I know that in Sydney there was a lady that used to come around on her bike. Also, if you're working with slippery fabrics like sateen, it's recommended to use a stabilizing paper underneath your fabric so that it doesn't slip and that your pattern pieces are cut out correctly. Number 8, it's also recommended for you to use a new needle every 8 hours of sewing. But the reason for this is because it can become blunt and it's more likely to break. If you know what I'm talking about, it's quite dangerous when your sewing needle breaks. Pieces of metal can go flying everywhere. So do make sure that you stay on top of that and change your needle every now and again. The 9th way to make your garments look more professional is to make sure that you are finishing the seams and removing any raw edges. I do this by using my overlocker. There we are, my overlocking. There's also different techniques. Some people like to use pinking shears, but I do think that it still frays if you use pinking shears. Also, you can use French seams, which are actually what they use in couture and high-end designer brands. Number 10 is probably my favorite tip, and it is to press your seams as you go. I think this is the easiest hack to make your garments look more professional. Not only does it mean that your seams will be more accurate when you're joining them, and you can see what you're working with a lot better when all the creases are removed, it also just looks a lot more polished and tailored. A lot of people actually have their iron and their ironing board in their sewing room, and there are so many different gadgets and tools you can use to iron your sewing pieces. I really like the tailor's ham. That's great for pressing out any darts or just curved edges like the shoulders. You can also get this big wooden block for ironing sleeves, and it is worthwhile investing in a good iron. Tip number 11 is also a really easy hack, and it is to make sure that your seam allowances are facing the back. For example, this is the front of the dress and this is the side seam. See how the seam allowance is caught in the overlocking of the hem so that it's facing the back. My final tip to make your sewing projects look more professional is to make sure that you cut all loose threads and you remove any markings from the pattern. As I mentioned last week, I really love my water erasable pen, but also if you use chalk or heat erasable pen, make sure that you go back and check that there's no more markings left. That is it from me. I hope these tips could be useful to you. Remember that your sewing projects don't have to be perfect. There are still moments where I think this looks completely handmade and maybe I'll still decide to wear it with pride. Maybe I'll leave it in my toile box. We're our own biggest critics, and I think when we make them, we know every detail, we know every mistake, but often people don't see it the way we do. So be gracious towards yourself and enjoy the process. Little by little, you will make your garments look more professional. You'll get there. I wish you happy sewing. A bientôt. Bye.